generation is rising. A 10-part video series on an emerging generation of kings.
Thank you for following this video series so far. If you've been with me and the countless thousands of other people who are on this journey, investing your time, your energy, your attention, and the gift of your presence of mind, I want to say a big thank you to you. If you haven't been following this video series, A Generation is Rising, a 10-part video series on an emerging generation of kings, you will do well to go through the archives and follow the links at the bottom of this video to catch up on the episodes you might have missed. Now, we've talked about so many things so far. We've talked about our greatest opportunity. We've talked about our greatest problem, our greatest solution, our greatest mission field, our greatest motivation, and our greatest message. But then you might be asking, what is our greatest method? Because for every mission, for every assignment, for every commission, for every task, for every duty, there must be a method. There must be a systematic way of making change happen. There must be a model, some kind of form of fashion that is well laid out that people can see and they can follow through on. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you what I believe holds the key to lasting transformation in the lives of individuals, in nations, in generations, and systems. Now, here's what I know by research, by experience, and by inspiration. That if change is going to happen, it's going to happen through one of those three ways. At least one of them. It could be a combination of two or the three of them. But first of all, you need revelation, a moment of awakening. Number two, you also need modeling. Change can happen through modeling, through leadership. Somebody is in front of you and it shows you how to do it, how to change, how to be transformed. And number three, it's through what I call conditioning, what other people might call programming. So let's think about it. Revelation is that moment of awakening. It can happen this way and it births a lifelong change. An example is Saul on his way to Damascus, who has an encounter with the light of God. Jesus manifests himself to him and speaks a word to him. In that moment of revelation, he's knocked off his high horse and Jesus says, Saul, Saul, why do you kick against the pricks, against the thorns? And that began a new level of awareness in his life. Another example is the Apostle Peter. He had toiled all night and he caught nothing. Jesus steps upon his boat. He has this massive draught of fish, this massive harvest, and it becomes a turning point in his life. Further along, it says, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. He had a revelation that brought about change in his life. Another way in which change can happen is through modeling, or what people will call mentorship or leadership, or having somebody who's gone ahead of you. And mentorship is very important, and modeling and discipleship and all of this is very important because we find that at work in the life of Moses and Joshua, in the life of Elijah and Elisha, in the lives of Paul and Timothy, Jesus and the 12 disciples. The third way in which change can really happen is through conditioning, because we eventually become what we are conditioned to become. This talks about the alteration of our lifestyles, our habits, our attitudes, our customs. And so we begin to see that Jesus, he had certain habits and customs. One account records that he went to the temple as his custom was. Another one says, another place we find him praying, arising a great while before dawn, praying as his custom was. So by revelation, by modeling, and by conditioning, you can bring about lasting change in people's lives. But this is what you've got to do. You've got to realize that when Jesus calls for followership, he says, you must follow me. And these three things, revelation, modeling, and conditioning, can be sequentially paced. They can be created in a sequence, in a series of steps. And for a long time, people have tried to become like Jesus. They've tried to experience transformation, but they don't know how. Well, I would propose to you today that the way to be transformed into the image of Christ, into the person of Christ, is revealed in the words he spoke. He said, if any man will follow me, let him carry his cross and come after me. And there are different definitions of following, like it means to come after in sequence. It means to come behind. It means to accept the leadership of another. It means to be submitted to the guidance of somebody else. And how does that apply? The first thing you've got to realize is that following Jesus talks about movement. So if you're going to be changed by revelation, the revelation has to move you or move something in you. If you're going to be moved or transformed by modeling, the model or the teacher or the leader in front of you has to be able to move you. If you're going to be transformed by conditioning, there must be some shift, some movement in the habits, the routines, and the rituals of your life. But that alone is not enough. For it to come to a place of establishment and reality, there must be touch or contact, there must be teaching, and of course there must be training. And so our method at Kings is to touch you through love, with the power of love and affection, to teach you the undiluted word of God and the whole counsel of that word and the fulfillment of his kingdom mandate and the expression of your inheritance in Christ Jesus, and to train you practically to share your faith, to give, to love somebody else, to go outside of your comfort zone and to create a difference in your world. And so we have two major things that we have in place to further your growth and strengthen you spiritually. There's what we call the growth track, and this really deals with your vertical growth process. But there's also the progress path, which talks about the horizontal displacement you experience as you begin to follow Christ and not just follow men. Now, the growth track basically deals with growing deeper and stepping higher, and the progress path is all about you going forward and going further. So you're not just growing up and ascending through the ranks of the organization of the ministry, but you're also going out there. You're not just coming, you're growing. You're not just gathering, you're growing. You're not just growing, but you're also going out to bring other people in to train them. And so we've created clear steps for growth. Now, I've noticed that in many ministries, there are no clear steps for growth spiritually. There are clear steps for growth in the ministry, in the organization. There are clear steps for ascension, to becoming a pastor or a deacon or a worker or a leader, but maybe not concrete steps for growth spiritually, so that whether you're still in the ministry or not, whether you travel in assignment or you're dispatched as a missionary, deployed as a missionary, you're still growing in the faith. But we have clear steps for growth. And it's not about you gathering, it's about you growing. So when you join, when you become a part of Kings, you go through a 4-step process. The first part of that process is what we call the beginner's guide. What does it mean to begin in your walk with God? What does it mean to journey with Jesus? What does it mean to be like him, to think like him, to operate like him, to love him? And then after you've gone through that for a couple of months, you go into the thing that we call the disciples journey. What does it mean to journey as a disciple? What does it mean to take on your cross and follow? In the 21st century, what does that cross stand for? What do you have to deny when it says deny yourself? How do you have to embrace the person of Christ? And once you've done that, you now also go through what we call the missionary map. And the missionary map is all about you representing Christ in your workplace, in your nation, in your generation, and in your system. And finally, we have what we call the King's Course, which is all about empowerment and understanding your authority as a child of God on the earth. Now, this is not just a brilliant laid out concept that I thought about. This was something that was born through months and possibly up to a year of intense intercession to find the model, not something that was copied from another place or stolen from another person. But by studying the life of Jesus, I see that he started out with beginners, giving them the bread and the fish and healing the sick and meeting their material needs. But at some point, he challenged the 5,000 and said, if you must follow me, be my disciples. And then he had 120 people who were the inner circle people that we find in the book of Acts at the upper room. Out of the 120, there was the 70 people that he sent out as missionaries to cast out demons, and they came back rejoicing. The demons even obey us, and says, rejoice not that demons obey you, but that your names are in the book of life. But finally, after he had ascended from the grave, after his death, burial, and resurrection, he gives them power to operate as kingdom influencers in nations, generations, and systems. He says, now I've been given power, I've received all power in heaven and earth is mine. Now you go into all the world and preach the gospel, and these signs and wonders will follow you. And this is the method that we're employing and engaging at Kings. You have a growth track, you have a progress path, and through a varieties of trainings and curricula and teachings and things that you have to do, you can grow. But beyond that, we also have an academy with specialized Bible-based trainings. And some of those trainings will be online and through weekly calls over the internet, so that even if you're not in a geographical location, or we're not in your geographical location yet, you can also be a part of it. There are also offline sessions that will be scheduled at different times. And we have courses like a marriage course, greatness course, influence course, God's way, not the way of the world, parenting course, evangelism, and all the rest of that. I believe that this has become a very good presentation for you to know what the processes and the methodologies are, and I am expecting that you join us in this great movement. All you have to do right now is send your full name and your email address to the phone number on the screen, and you become a part of a member of our online community and our WhatsApp group, and send a communication from time to time. Now, don't forget, this Sunday, coming Sunday, you can join us from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. We'll send your details, your personal invitation, when we have your details, to that number. And on the last Sunday of this month, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., a special gathering of kings. It's been a pleasure sharing with you what our greatest method is. Whatever you do, stand in faith, grow in faith, and keep sharing your faith. And remember this, that a generation is rising.
A generation is rising. A 10-part video series on an emerging generation of kings. To join this growing community of kings, visit www.kingdomcentral.org and send your full name and email address to 0908-123-4566. One more thing, kindly share this video. Someone you know needs to watch this.